Welcome to the Debrief.
Your no-nonsense look
at the critical talent topics shaping today's landscape.
No scripts.
No sugarcoating.
Only spicy takes. Just real insight from across the industry.
I'm Ben Sesser.
I'm Chris Abbas.
I'm Tracy St. Deek, and this
is the Debrief. Welcome back to the Debrief. Today, we're getting into AI skills in 2026, what they actually are, and how you test for them in a way that holds up. The pace of change here is hard to ignore. Skills in AI-powered roles are evolving 66% faster than others, and what used to stay relevant for years now shifts in 12 months or less. At the same time, people with AI capabilities are commanding a 56% wage premium, and those leading into AI are seeing significantly higher productivity per employee. So to kick things off, Tracy, Ben, how are you testing for AI skills at the moment?
We are 100% full on testing for AI skills and have been for quite a while now. I think what's interesting too is that, there was the PwC 2025 Global AI Jobs Barometer, and it said, it's not just us testing for AI skills. AI related job postings grew 7.5%, despite an overall market decline of 11.3%. So I think that's very telling. And then by 2027, the Microsoft New Future of Work report says that 75% of hiring processes are expected to include AI skills testing or certifications. I mean, I honestly think 75% may be a little bit conservative, at least the way that I'm seeing things. But yes, Zapier last May or June, we implemented our minimum bar for AI fluency for every single role, technical roles, tax accountants, recruiters, every single person. And even in the past, 9-10 months, we've seen the landscape dramatically shift. So now we are introducing our V2 of that. We're raising the bar significantly. And I just think that this is a trend that we're going to be seeing across the industry. What are you saying, Ben?
Well, I think it's interesting, the data that you presented about the percentage of interview processes or hiring processes that will evaluate for AI skills. Just to put that into perspective, we actually did an analysis, I think it was like last fall, and then we updated it earlier this year. So we looked at tens of thousands of interviews across our client base, which tends to lean a little tech oriented. So these would be folks that, you'd imagine would be more likely in some, I think in many respects to evaluate for AI skills. So AI is discussed in like 60% of interviews. And that's like, if you look at the chart over the last few years, it's like this. I'm trying to remember like the starting point, but yeah, like back in 2022, it was like 10%. And the line is like this. But in terms of the percentage of interviews where AI is actually assessed, and we measured that by looking at, there was some sort of question or sort of like interviewer prompt that was about like, what tools have you used, or, what skills do you have, or a practical example, it's 2.7%. It's super low. And that's like across every function. In fact, the function with the highest percent of interviews with like an actual question on that is actually HR and recruiting, which I don't know, maybe that's like self-awareness, but it's like 4% of interviews. And that's up, from like zero basically in 2024. So it's still very infrequent that anyone's testing for AI skills in practice. Although, I think we all would say like there's a lot of chatter around it amongst our peers. Like, how do we do this? What should we do? So yeah, I think that data is quite interesting. I was shocked because we measured it in 2025 and then we remeasured it. And I was like, at first I didn't believe the data. I was like, there's no way it's this low. We reran it. And it's just, I think folks, I don't know why, maybe it's because folks don't yet know how to evaluate for AI skills, which is maybe why we're doing this podcast. But the numbers are quite low. Yeah.
I think a lot of orgs have also added AI fluency or AI literacy or whatever they call it to job descriptions. But to your point, very few have defined what good actually looks like or trained their interviewers to assess it. So that's not actually a bar. That's just, I think, creating noise. Like, we need to get on the AI train. We're going to say we need people who are AI fluent, but it really falls apart in practice.
The issue is as well, right? It's like we've in our interview process started seeing like previous iterations of our interview process just being completely redundant now, because people can just find the answers online and you don't know what is their brain and what is Gemini or OpenAI or Claude. And so it's really hard to assess like how they're solving problems and how much actual knowledge they have of the discipline and the kind of area. And so that's becoming something that's really, really hard. We're having to change. We've changed our interview process in the last 6 months, like 3 times, because it's almost like people are finding ways to like cheat the system, or we start looking at Bri hires and everyone has the same answers. Like literally, it's like they copied and pasted the same answers. And so it's something that we're really thinking about. And what we're leaning towards is that people are having to almost like demo how they're using AI in production to produce an outcome. And rather than kind of just telling us how they're using it or how they would use it, or produce an output from the AI, I want to see the actual workflow they use and how they produce an outcome. But I'd be really interested in how you guys are really testing for that, and making sure that you're getting kind of an authentic view of someone's skill set versus just like regurgitated AI.
I guess before we jumping into like how do we assess for AI skills, maybe it's worth talking about what AI skills are. So I think there's hard skills, and I think there's really, really important soft skills related to being successful in an AI world, and those are, I think, equally as important. So hard skills, might be things like, do you know how to use certain tools, right? Like have you used whatever Claude Code or Claude Cowork, and can you hit the ground running? Are you facile? I think a lot of people talk about like, can you write prompts, which I have feelings about, but and then like, do you generally know how AI works, right? Like meaning, if you understand how the systems work, then you can work better with the systems because, you sort of understand what they do, what they represent, what they can't do well, how to kind of push on what you're getting back. So I think those are the two buckets, in my view. And then the soft skills are like, and I can talk about why I care about them so much to me. And I get like, I'm sure other people have different definitions. I think about curiosity. Like, are you curious? Are you open to try and adapt to new things? Do you have self-motivation? Like, are you high agency? Like, do you just have the intrinsic internal motivation to improve and learn? Because in an AI world, like that's a superpower. Are you smart? Like, are you able to pick new things up quickly? So you could be curious, but not great at picking up new things. But are you able to do that? Critical thinking. So like, do you question and stress test things, right? Because like you're getting outputs back from AI, you need to be critical about those. Grit. The reason that matters to me is like, do you keep at something even if it doesn't work right away? Because a lot of the interaction with AI systems, like the thing you get back might not work. You might hit a kind of a dead end. Are you going to try again? And I think the last one is, are you a system builder? Like, do you solve problems as a point in time, one shot deal? Or are you somebody that's like, I'm going to solve this problem like as a system that just works. It works for me, works for other people, et cetera. So I'm super focused on those AI soft skills. But I do think that the best way to evaluate them for me is practice. Like my take to the team internally has been like, ChatGPT has been out for multiple years. And there are probably great people in the world who just like maybe haven't gotten around to going super deep with AI. But they're not going to be a great fit for us because we want what I'm calling like AI bar raisers. Like I want people that are coming into the company, maybe we can afford to do this because of our scale, but that are going to raise the average AI capability on the team. And ultimately be like 3x versions of themselves. So at this point, like I'm digging into what people have done. I'm pushing the team, just dig into what people have done, like in detail, because there's been sufficient time for people to do stuff, whether it's personal or professional. And that's the way that we really try to get at the AI skills. It's not like, how would you write a good prompt? It's just talk to me, tell me what you've done. And I can talk to you what like the high level definition of like the bar is, if helpful, but that's really the way that we've approached it. And that's the way that we get at the soft skills, because you can learn a lot about those soft skills by probing and getting into the weeds on what they've done, how they went about it. Like, have they demonstrated those? Have they demonstrated curiosity, grit, those sorts of things.
Ben, I actually love that. I don't disagree with you at all in looking at some of those soft skills. I really feel like how people approach AI is honestly more of a demonstration of AI fluency than, to your point, like what they can actually build and what tools they're using today. One of the things that we say at Zapier a lot is that it's the slope and not the snapshot. So we're really interested in, how do people learn hard things fast? It's a phrase I've been saying a lot. How do you learn hard things fast? I think that encompasses curiosity. It encompasses adaptability. It's also, how do you just jump in, start experimenting? How are you unafraid to fail? How do you just pick up something and start playing with it and working at it, iterating it, being resilient, having grit? So I think it encompasses all of that. So I've just been saying this phrase, how do you learn hard things fast? It's one of the things I look for in my TA team, but it's going to be something that we're looking for across the board. So just to step back again, I don't disagree with anything you said. I can maybe put a little bit of a finer point on some of the things you said. Just how
Professionalize it. Yeah, my vibes. Yeah.
I like to get really concrete. So we look at, it used to be 3, now we look at 4 different aspects of AI fluency, 4 components. It has always been mindset, strategy, and builder skills. And then in our next version that we're launching now, it is accountability and discernment. So mindset is very much the soft skills that you're saying. It's, how am I jumping in, experimenting, curious, adaptability, all of that sort of stuff. Strategy, or I used to call it strategic acumen, is how am I thinking about the vision of my role and my function? Also, if you're a manager or team leader, it's definitely more about the vision of your function. So for me, how is recruiting changing in the next 2, 3, 5 years? What is my philosophy on AI within recruiting?
That's kind of the system builder. That's a little the system builder. Yeah.
It's definitely a system builder. Yeah, I completely agree. It's a system builder. It's understanding the strategy of when you should and shouldn't use it and what's your philosophy on that, and being a subject matter expert and knowing where is your function going, whether that's marketing or RevOps or legal or something like that. Then the actual builder skills I think are really important, but I think that goes beyond just what tools you're using. It really leans on how are you using the tools? How are you prompting? How are you iterating and using tools as a thought partner? So we lean a lot on Anthropic's AI fluency index skills, the report that they put out a few weeks ago, and iteration and thought partnership with AI were 2 of the biggest indicators of higher levels of AI fluency. So similar to what I think you all were saying is when we're thinking about assessing skills and assessing builder skills, we've moved away from what is the product that you can show us, which you could probably just throw into ChatGPT and tell us this is what you built, but more show us how you are building in real time. That could be live, coding assessments using Cursor. That could be, here's some data. Show me how you work with, your LLM tool of choice or your AI tools of choice to actually iterate and get to a better product. Like, I want to see how you think. And then the last piece goes along with that, which is accountability and discernment, because it's not just knowing what AI tools to use and when, it's also knowing what tools you shouldn't use and why not, and when you shouldn't use them and when they have limitations. And so that to me is just a critical piece that was always a part of our AI fluency rubric, but it's a lot more explicit right now because there is so much AI slop out there, and knowing and being accountable for what you're putting out there is something that we wanted to just put a really fine point on. So those are the 4 things that we look for. And then we have what we call a capable bar, a adoptive bar, and a transformative bar that is very high. And that has drastically changed if you look side by side of what our minimum bar is for AI fluency now at Zapier. It's really, really changed. I'll just give you a few examples. So our old minimum bar that we launched back in June the definition was, I repeatedly use AI with purpose. I show forward momentum. I'm open to it. I'm curious. I'm not resistant, right? That has drastically shifted. So now that definition is, how are you using AI with purpose to materially elevate your performance? So that is, are you actively experimenting with AI? How do you revisit workflows? Are you building repeatable workflows and tools quickly? And can you name how you've grown that over time? So not just what are you doing today, but what were you doing 6 months ago? And then what were you doing 3 months ago? How did that get you to where you are today? So we want to move away from just one-off tool usage. I use AI to redraft my emails, to more of a systems level integration. And again, that is at the minimum level for Zapier. So this is a huge jump. But we also think this is where the market's going. This is where people are going. Things are changing really, really quickly. So we're seeing that. So we have a higher bar. We're adding accountability and discernment this time. We're looking at live iterations, and then we're looking at slope versus snapshot. And those are probably the 4 biggest changes we've seen.
What you just mentioned, to me, in my mind, feels like you have a really tiny talent pool to choose from. And how are you managing that? Because, for example, there might be a lot of people who have that ability, just haven't had the chance to have a production, have a go at that in a real production environment because of whatever, issues in their current company or restrictions. So how can we tell that someone has that capability or that desire if they haven't been able to put it into production? How are you managing that, I guess, or thinking about that?
I think that's such a fair question, and it's something that we've talked about a lot internally. What is this going to do to our talent pool? Is it too narrow? Is the bar even too high? So a couple of things. One, I think that it is true that a lot of people might not be able to use certain tools at work, but I think that there are so many tools and so many free versions out there. I think it's sort of an excuse right now. It used to be okay for people to say, yeah, I would really love to use it, but I can't use this at work. And so this is how I would use it. That used to be fine. That actually used to pass our capable bar. Now it won't, because I think it demonstrates a little bit of low agency if you kind of say, I can't use it. So what are you going to do? There's so many things you can use out there personally, and you can play around, you can iterate, you can learn tools. I don't think that's an excuse anymore. Maybe that's a little bit of a spicy take. I think the second thing is I will be clear. I don't think that this is the minimum bar for every company, every industry. I was just at Unleashed earlier this week talking to a lot of companies that are just trying to get the legal clearance to use an LLM, period, in their work. And so I don't think this is for every company. I think companies like Zapier, who are very AI forward, we have to keep raising the bar, because when we bring people in, we want them to be on par with our current workforce. We don't want to be bringing people in who come in overwhelmed, trying to use AI tools like Cursor and Code and Claude Code and Codex. We want them to be able to jump in and be a part of the team. And so as we as a company have raised our level of AI transformation and our level of AI fluency, it only makes sense that we need to bring people in who can match that or get there very, very quickly. Now, I think enablement is such a big piece of it, which is why, again, we really index on those soft skills, being able to learn hard things fast, showing us how you think. Because if you have those capabilities or those soft skills, it is very likely that you could jump into Zapier week one and learn the tools that we need you to learn. And we feel confident in our ability to teach you those. So I do want to say it is a caveat that Zapier or tech companies like us could be a little bit of a special case. And I think this is where the industry is going. I'm talking to more and more people across all functions that are doing these things. They're vibe coding. They're playing with LLMs, or even more. They're using MCP. They're using, a lot of different things. And so I think even in 3 months, this is going to be a lot more normal than it feels right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not sure it's a spicy take, but here's my layman's version of what Tracy said in a more scientific way. That's like our bar that I've been kind of communicating and thinking about. Basically, like, you use ChatGPT to write emails or Claude to plan on vacation. No, that's a no. That's like, anyway, I won't get it, but that's a no, basically.
Yeah.
You've built a few custom GPTs and workflows and created some like nice small efficiencies when maybe, around stuff like that. That's a maybe, but the person better be incredible in some other ways. And then you've made yourself like some version of an Iron Man suit, or you've tried, you've made yourself basically like a 3x multiplier, or done something really much more robust, maybe personally. And that's a yes. Like, we're cooking with gas. Like, that's that's what we want. And I do think the talent pool is smaller when you do that. But when you're hiring someone who's made themselves a 3x Iron Man suit, like, it's worth the wait, because the productivity and the delivery that you'll get from those folks is next level. And Tracy's point, you have to skate where the puck is going. So that's the layman's terms, but I do think it helps like our team kind of wrap their head around, like, they're listening to somebody's experience and they can kind of put it in one of those 3 buckets and just have clarity on, if somebody comes to an interview with me and say it's like a CEO, it's like a final round interview, I'm gonna have a hard line on this, and so don't waste your time. And so I've also pushed the team to try to assess for this in the screen, like the first interview, because it's one of those make or break things. And so get a sense for it pretty upfront, because you don't want to waste a bunch of their time and your time and get someone through the process, and then I'm going to dig in and I'm going to understand where they fall in this, and maybe make a tough call.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about, I think, like, okay, this is what the people we're hiring, our team members, need to be kind of doing and experimenting with. I guess for the leaders that are listening out there and trying to be kind of at the forefront of how to use AI, how to think about AI to protect themselves and, to be ready for this new world, like, what should leaders be focusing on, do you think, like, in terms of what they're doing, how they're using it in their kind of everyday, how they can kind of be at the forefront of this move?
I think one thing that I've experienced personally is, as a leader, sometimes you can set unreasonable goals in terms of how quickly something can be accomplished that's really, big or challenging. And that sets like a benchmark that then, going forward what's possible. And then you can, you kind of are the pace setter for a lot of people in the organization, and like, they realize that they can do things that they didn't think were possible for. And I think it's the same with respect to AI. If you're not deep and using tools and really understanding the art of the possible, you can't effectively push your team to take things to the next level, because you don't know yourself, like what the expectation should be. And if you're going deep and you're doing things and you're like, holy smokes, I cannot believe what I've just unlocked, or what I've been able to accomplish in, in the amount of time that I've put to this, then, it's really, really hard to like push the team. And on the other hand, if you do, you're like, someone will try to accomplish something or get something done, and you'll say, I know what we can do. Like, this is what we should be striving for. Try this. And you can really be the pace setter. And I think that's really important. You can't be the pace setter if you don't know what the pace can be.
Yeah. Ben, I love hearing you as a CEO say that, because I think what you can do as a leader, or even if you're not a company leader, but a team manager, is you absolutely have to set the bar and the pace for this, because people, will follow your example. You carving out intentional space, not only for yourself, but for your team, is really important. So actually, even in our AI fluency bar for managers is this component of how are you creating psychological safety? How are you thinking about change management? How are you upskilling your team? How are you building habits? So it's not just about what are you building for your team in order to transform their work. It's how are you actually transforming your workforce? And so for anybody we're hiring, say at director level and above, we need to see that they have truly thought about this or done this, where they're actually thinking about how to upskill their team. One of the things that our Chief People and AI Transformation Officer, Brandon Samut, says that has stuck with me ever since he said it was basically, at this point, if you're not upskilling your team, it's management malpractice. And I think the best way to do that is exactly what you said, Ben, is get into it yourself, keep trying, show what's working, what's not working, but also you'll have a much more realistic bar for your company, because you know how fast you can move and what it takes to get there and really learn those things too. So I love hearing that from you and love hearing that from CEOs.
Yeah, I was just going to quote Tracy's, but she got there before me, because I saw her on a panel. We actually spend time just listening to each other off this podcast all day too. But yeah, Tracy said the management malpractice comment, and I think that that is absolutely right. I feel like you have a duty to your people to get them on board and get them excited about this, because they're at risk if they don't. That's how I feel. And I think, building stuff for people, kind of opening up their mind to what's possible, and actually them seeing the value has been like a really magical experience. Look, especially if you're deep in it and you're seeing that yourself, but then to see the light switch go off in other people's heads, and they're like, oh, this is actually going to help me, and this is actually going to make a difference, is really cool. I mean, as a kind of CEO, the one thing that's really been massive for me is just how quickly and easily I can synthesize data from across my business and get it into a place that I can just see and know exactly what's going on. And that was very manual and difficult before. Now no one can hide from me. So I'm like a nightmare. Everyone is like,
I was thinking this, I'm the worst. I'm the worst.
Yeah.
It's so brutal. I'm like, really? Because look what I just did.
Yeah.
Boom. Are you sure about that? Yeah. It's like you're also the worst at the same time, because you just know so much, and you can,
Yeah. I'm like, I thought you said the pipeline was strong. I've just pulled it up, and it looks like actually the activity level.
So many examples. Yeah.
But it's actually also, I think it's just an awesome thing that everyone's going to really benefit from. So yeah, I totally love that. I love that framing from both of you. Okay, so spicy takes. We've had a few already, but any spicier ones we've got?
This was kind of about how to assess for AI skills, and so my spicy take is that the AI soft skills are way more important than the AI hard skills, because there's going to continue to be more like abstraction from the barrier to doing things with AI, right? Like, it was like you have to use Claude Code, and then there was like co-work, and now you can just write natural language and kind of achieve the same things. It's like, it's just going to get easier and easier and more like abstracted from the some of the hard skills, like how to write the perfect prompt. Like, that's not going to be hard, because the AI is going to be like, I know what you're trying to accomplish, and I'm going to just reform that. Like, so that's where the soft skills become more important, because you could test someone for a hard skill, but that's pretty fleeting. If they have the soft skills, which they demonstrate by virtue of what they've done, then that'll set them up for the long term versus like some point in time. Like, I think when I hear people that are like, we are rigorously evaluating our candidates on like how they write a prompt, I don't know, I find that like, I guess, but like, that's not like, that skill feels old, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, so why are we, yeah, I think the soft skills are what really matters. So being able to unpack that is way more important.
You said that so well. That skill feels old. I think there's a lot of data out there that, the window or the life of a skill is now something like 12 to 18 months. I heard a talk recently where the window is actually 6 months. You need to be relearning new skills every 6 months. So yeah, I'm with you on that, Ben. Okay. My spicy take. Is this a spicy take? I'm not sure. I would say that every company, regardless of industry, needs to have a minimum AI fluency bar. Because if you don't, you're going to be hiring people who, if they aren't AI fluent, they're going to produce less, they're going to complete less work, and they're going to need a lot more support. And so I think there's going to very quickly become an ROI argument for ensuring that you have some sort of minimum bar for your company, because this is what the new future of work is going to be. I will also say a second one, I think most AI skills assessments are testing much of the wrong thing. I think if everyone has access to the same tools, what you actually need to test is judgment, taste, and discernment. Those are much harder to put in a rubric, and most orgs haven't tried yet. But I think those are the things that are going to start to set people apart. It's not just, can you use the tools, but how do you use them and how critical are you about them so that you actually know that what you're putting out there is good and not just what comes out first and feels polished.
Can I add one thing to what you said, Tracy? Not only will the folks be less productive and so on and so forth, the things that you articulated, but one other thing strikes me, those folks psychologically, like, change management's a big part of AI, and you're just adding more speed bumps and friction to your organization, because there's a certain class of folks who are like resistant to AI or are like, I don't know, and those are the folks that a lot of folks that I'm talking to are trying to like change manage. And so you're just knowingly adding more of those folks to your organization, which will make change management continuously harder and harder potentially.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I think I'm hearing increasing noise around like top-down pressure to like reduce massive amounts of hiring and also layoffs because of this kind of very broad sweeping statement. AI is going to create efficiency. And I think it's massive. I mean, I have been deep in it. I've been using it. I think there's massive benefits, but I think it's drastically overestimated in terms of what it's going to do from a broad standpoint. I think deep, acute, repetitive work, huge value broadly across like replacing full roles, especially kind of senior work is that's a long way off in my view. So I think there's going to be a real shitstorm of like companies being way behind because they either didn't hire fast enough and they slowed down, or they fired too many people. I think you've got to like a lot of the noise of like AI is going to take over and replace like 80% of knowledge workers. It's coming from the people who benefit from that statement, right? Who their investors need to believe that story, who they get more funding if that's true. So I think you've got to just think about like where the noise is coming from and like who's saying it. But like, yeah, maybe it's in the middle. We'll see. We should do some predictions and then have some kind of betting sideline going on. Okay, so that wraps that up. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to the debrief. If you like this episode, hit like and follow so you don't miss an episode. More hot takes, real talk, and talent insights coming your way next time. Tune in and get the debrief.